Well, I used to be a corporate lawyer in my hometown of Auckland in New Zealand, and I had a great job. I had like a beautiful office on the 37th floor, view out over the harbour, and it was great. I was doing really good litigation, really intellectually satisfying work. But I just felt there was something missing. It just wasn't quite why I went to law school. I didn't go to law school to help big companies and things.
Being a lawyer often involves spending an awful lot of your time looking into kind of the mundane realities that surround you. The rules of commercial law that govern the operations of business in your country, the rules that govern family relationships in your own country. And refugee law is really exciting in that it lets you actually spend most of your time thinking and talking about what's happening elsewhere in the world. What are the rules of marriage in Burma? What's the criminal code in Mexico? I mean, all of these topics that you wouldn't even have dreamed of existing, that you get to discuss and research with your refugee and as part of the refugee case.
I think that just personal stories are very, very inspiring. I mean, that's how I ended up getting into this line of work, just by working with the refugees myself. It was just so inspiring. I remember at my last day of teaching class at the refugee camp, the class gave me a goodbye present, and it was a can of Coke. And I know that was such a commodity for them to be able to just get together and pay for, you know, the can of Coke, because that's not something they treat themselves to. And I mean, that's one of the best presents I've ever gotten, and 17 years later, I still remember it, and it brings tears to my eyes. So, I mean, I think it's just the personal connections you have with refugees and people who work with refugees.
It's very important to have lawyers' involvement because in Malaysia, we have so many problems with the law. You know, we have existing laws, we have the constitution to protect us, but still it opens to abuses by the government agencies. Imagine refugees, they don't have anything to protect them, they don't have any domestic law to protect them, and even the government is not signatory to the 51 Convention. They have zero protection in Malaysia, and that gives it more I think, importance for us to be involved because they are very vulnerable. I think they are the most vulnerable people in Malaysia, and we have to do something because it's very extreme. They're living in very extreme circumstances and their lives are at stake, so we have to step in and do something about it.
Refugees are really literally on the outside of any protection because they're not citizens of the state where they are. So they really need help from people like lawyers who can present to the state where they're at why they need protection and what is the human rights reason. And that's often a legal assessment. It's more than simply a moral or a social assessment of their needs, but it's actually looking at international law and really trying to apply the law, and that's what lawyers do well.
The impact of strategic litigation on refugees and asylum seekers is a contribution that, you know, lawyers can make. But if you're an activist or you help out refugees in a non-legal context, you may not be able to take those cases to court as much.
For me, lawyers, the profession itself, we have to advocate human rights, we have to uphold justice. I think Section 42 of the Legal Profession Act clearly states that our duty as lawyers is to uphold justice without fear or favor. So we have that's our obligation, responsibility. It's not so much of a choice for me.